right. Today's hot sheet, I'm discussing Zillow analysis and how home buying has changed, the rise in home price reductions, and tariffs. They're going into effect today, which is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. I'm Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Okay, in the live chat, let me know which market you are tuning in from, of course, but also give Bobby a little bit of extra love. Bobby had a little rough. We just did our live role play objection handling over inside of BAMX members that were on there. It was great to see you. Kim was on there. Happy Tuesday from Charlotte. Just did a great role play, and you should join BAMX. I agree. Join BAMX, you get access to all of that kind of stuff. But we had a little bit of an audio thing, Bobby. So give Bobby a little bit of love on that, because I was just also look at this. I don't know if you guys see this. Look at this little wobbly microphone.
We're working it out.
Yeah. But look at. Go back to Bobby. Go back to yourself. Look at his mic. Is his mic wobbling?
No, my mic is like 10 feet tall, though. I'm on the old stand.
All right, so Bobby's mic looks good. Mine looks like somebody was playing soccer in the parking lot with this thing. It's got dents all over it, and it's wobbling all over the place.
You've had that mic longer than I've worked for you. Fun fact.
Okay, so Bobby is taking no Blake. Give Bobby a little bit of love. Bobby's doing a great job. All right, we've got home prices, a decade worth of growth in 5 years. This is a Zillow report. It goes into some. How the pandemic has really changed our lives, but also the home buying process. We have an increase in price reductions. We saw that yesterday with the Altos research. This is coming from realtor.com, amongst some other data points that I'd like to go over. And then the start of tariffs. What's this going to mean for rates? Something top of my mind, but also what's this going to mean, obviously, for housing. All right, so let's jump in and lead off here with the Zillow information here. So this is a press release they just released here within the last week out of Seattle. The housing market of today looks remarkably different than the housing market 5 years ago. For those of us that remember January and February of 2020. This was a time where 2020, January, February was like, wow, this is going to be a good spring market. This is going to be a very active spring market. That 2020 was shaping up to be, a market that had competition, certainly normal, so more similar to 19 than obviously what it ended up being. Then obviously March changed everything. So just think back to that time frame just before the outbreak and the global pandemic ensued in March 2020. And now think back to today, right? We've seen home values and rents completely surge. We're talking record highs in both. The number of $1 million homes, okay, here's a stat for you. In just this short period of time, the number of $1 million homes has doubled. Okay, what can $1 million buy today? Skyrocketing prices over the past 5 years sent the value of nearly 1 million more homes above the million mark. So nearly 1 million more homes than pre-pandemic are now worth $1 million plus. Okay, there's just under 1,006.5 or 1,006.5. I'm sorry. 1.65 million, Bobby. Did I get it right that time? Am I good there? 1.65 million homes out there that are worth at least $1 million nationwide. That's about 990,000 more than when the pandemic started. Okay, so the typical $1 million home is about 70 square feet smaller than when the pandemic began. So that's about 2,400 square feet, right? And so right now we're thinking, hey, in some markets, 2,400 square feet is $400,000, is $500,000, is $600,000. And then there's markets where 2,400 square feet is going to be $1 million plus. And hey, there's neighborhoods where 2,400 square feet might be 10 million, right? So the square footage, it all depends on the dirt underneath it. We get that. But the typical $1 million home is about 2,400 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. That's your typical. Okay. There's 3 major metro areas: Indy, Hartford, Nashville, where the typical $1 million home lost more than 1,000 square feet. Okay. What's common with those 3 markets? Over this time period, you had high competition, you had low inventory. Now Nashville inventory coming back, obviously, but Indy, Hartford still dealing with low inventory. Hartford region, and depending on, there's going to be a lot of different areas depending on the way Zillow's doing that region, not just Hartford City. For those of you that have been to the Whaler City before. All right, construction boom putting a ceiling on price growth. Builders reacted to this, obviously, the surge in the housing demand with more than 1 million single-family home starts in 2021. This right here tells you why there is over 9 months of inventory in new construction, why home builders are sitting on over 9 months of inventory in a precarious position today in 2025. Well, how could this be? How are builders sitting on so much inventory when some numbers have us as low as $2 million homes rather short of meeting supply, and some numbers have as high as 7 million homes short to meet true buyer demand? A lot of the numbers now we've seen have fallen somewhere in the middle or on the lower side of that middle. Well, why do builders then have over 9 months of supply? If they stopped putting homes online, it would take over 9 months for all of our national home builders to work through the supply. And I could even argue in some markets, it's going to be a lot longer than that. This is why Ivy Zellman on a hot sheet last week, we broke down Ivy Zellman saying she is a bear on national home builder stocks. There's only one home builder stock that she would even be interested in. That was Toll. That was because their product speaks more to the luxury buyer than a Pulte, than a DR, than some of these other names that customarily have baked their bread in lower range median price markets, depending on the market they're in. But this is the reason why national home building or new builds seem unaffordable. It's because they are for most buyers. Okay. There's more than just 1 million single family home starts in 2021, reaching that milestone for the first time since 2007. There'll be, Darth Vader on X is going to, he'll take that and turn it into the world is ending. We know it's not, but these are things to look out for. The metro areas with the most single family permits since 2020 are Houston, Dallas, Phoenix, Atlanta, and Austin. Okay. What can we say about places like Dallas and Austin? Okay. Inventory is high. Okay. Well, it's no surprise they had the most single family permits since 2020. Inventory is high. There's pressure on prices in those 2 markets in particular. I think it was Dawn yesterday on the hot sheet that shared 23% up on I think it was inventory in that Dallas metro. She works out of that area, right? Going here to another, and then we're going to break into some of these local markets. I think that we'll highlight a few of these, what's going on with some of the local regions. But the pandemic supercharged virtual home shopping. Do you agree or disagree in the live chat in your market? Do you agree this? So is this Zillow pumping Zillow 3D home tour and things like, listing showcase, or is there validity to this? Okay. Like Zillow's not lying when they say this. Zillow showcase listings drive more views, saves, and shares. You can line up similar homes in your market versus showcase, and there's no question the algorithm is pushing way more juice towards the listing showcase homes. Okay. Like if saves, views, and shares are important to win a listing, yeah, that product works to win listings. Is it actually generating more offers and all of that? You'd have to make that decision for yourself. But saves, shares, views on the platform, yeah, that's certainly happening. But do you believe in the last 4 or 5 years that virtual home shopping, like I'm doing the majority of my shopping virtually outside of April 2020, May 2020, I get it. April, May 2020, everybody was shopping virtually. It was for those of you that met buyers in April, May, June 2020. It was weird. It was in person. It was uncomfortable. Do I have the right mask on? All of that. Is it tied correctly? Is it working? All those questions were going through everybody's mind during that time period. But think past 2020. Has virtual home shopping in your market taken place of additional home tours? Okay. I'd be curious on your thoughts there in the market. Surreal thinking back to those times, Laura, in the Seattle metro area. Everybody should connect with Laura. She's one of the best BAMX and just one of the best people in the real estate community of all time. So you guys should connect with her. And does Jose have a comment there on that
Yes.
part?
Not on that, but that it's a paid product from Zillow.
Oh, okay. So naturally, Zillow's going to pump that. Yeah, no, totally agree. They're running their own CTA there on that. What they are saying from a data perspective on this is that a small share of buyers say they wasted their time during home search by viewing properties they would have skipped if they better understood the floor plan ahead of time. 50%. So that's not a big jump. 50% now versus 54% in 2020 rather. Fewer buyers have said they attended 5 or more open houses. 17% in 2020, 7% in 24. Interesting. Fewer buyers say they're attending 5 or more, and it's significantly less now than in 2020. That's interesting. Private home tours, 31% in 2020 versus 15% in 24. So Zillow, based on their data showing that the online tools are growing, 7 out of 10 buyers say 3D home tours help them get a better feel for the space than static photos. Like, here's where I'm going to certainly listen. Take the name Zillow out of it, so I don't get freaking steamrolled here in comments, which I'm happy to get steamrolled anytime. I'm happy to be the squirrel in the middle of the road. If you want to run me over, I usually try to avoid them at all costs, but if you want to just flatten me, go ahead. Just take Zillow out of it so you don't have to. I've always been a proponent, a strong advocate that 100% of listings should have a floor plan on there. Whether you're doing and disclosing on the floor plan, this is a complete estimate. And I sketched it on my iPad, and I'm a freaking novice, and it looks like a crackerjack floor plan, or I've hired a professional to do a really well done floor plan, or I'm going to that next level of like a showcase product where the floor plan actually shows the photos from the angles and I can click around and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, right? Like, there's levels to it for sure. But I'm strongly advocating that 100% of listings have a floor plan. Why in the world, as a buyer, would I want to have to set up a home tour to know if the bathroom is on the other side of the house and I'm going to have my mother-in-law living with me and she goes to the bathroom every 20 minutes and it's on the other side of the house and she needs a cane to get over there? Like, I got to go see the house to realize that. I should be able to know the flow of the home, the floor plan, on 100% of listings. So like what, Zillow is saying, like 7 out of 10 buyers say that 3D is obviously, an elevated level of just a simple static floor plan, help them get a better feel for the space. Of course it does. The majority of photos online on the portals aren't even organized the way the home flows, because what do we do as agents? We say, well, this is the best photo. This is the second best. This is the third best. I hope they don't get to photo number 12 because it might be the worst photo I've ever uploaded into the MLS. Hopefully they look at 1 through 7. That's what happens, guys. And so the floor plans sometimes aren't even organized, or the photos aren't even organized in the way the floor plan would be. Jill says, I think the first time home buyer market will struggle and lag. Most movement will be second move up buyer. Okay. So just first time. Okay. So interesting there. Jill having thoughts on this. Brad, pet peeve, organize the damn photos. All right. Let's take a look at specific, not the Pacific Ocean, but specific markets here. Some may be on the Pacific Ocean, like Los Angeles. Home value growth since 2020, we're talking 43.8%. So this is the final takeaway from this Zillow report here. Look at the US, 45.3% home value growth since February 2020. LA, 43.8%. Dallas, 43.8%. Look at Philly, not for Where's Tom Tool, but look at Philly for their home price growth, 45.6%. Miami, 61.1%. These are markets, US included, at 45.3%. This is why New York still has upside at 35.1%, because the markets where we're looking 40% and over, these are markets who have experienced home value growth that you would expect in a decade in 5 years. Okay. They've experienced home value growth that you would expect in a decade in 5 years. It's one of my favorite charts. Vanessa, if it should be in our favorite charts inside of BAMX.
We can actually show them where it is later on.
Okay. I'll just go there. So for BAMX members, you know exactly where to find this. Okay. This is one of my all-time favorite charts. If you've been part of the hot sheet for a long time, you know that. So we go into the classroom, go into your hot sheet where we upload all of the day's data here. So this is going to be obviously all of today's data that we're using. But if I go into most popular charts, home price growth by decade, here it is. Okay. So home price growth by in the US by decade. All right. Look at this. 47% in the 2000s, 44% in the 2010s, and the 1990s, which seems like forever ago, 30.1%. Easy to download right here on the top right. But that's where some of the most popular ones are. Obviously, here's where today's will live under February. Anyways, that's for BAMX members, school.com/BAMX. We've now already in 5 years experienced that level of home price growth. And so what we haven't seen in most markets over the last 12 months is, you know, the type of home price growth we saw obviously in the first 4 years. Last 12 months haven't felt, in most markets as accelerant as the first 4 years have. And what does Lance Lambert, what did he tell us on Knowledge Brokers podcast when he was on recently, a few weeks ago? Over on Knowledge Brokers podcast, he said most years will be very similar to the last year in terms of home sales total, in terms of home price growth. Okay. And so we're starting now to see home price growth slow, still, outside of Tampa, not really anywhere is dropping, but it's certainly slowing. The appreciation has slowed down. And so you could argue that we've experienced, now there's arguments, and we heard from JP Morgan analysts recently here on the hot sheet that would suggest in 2 years we might hit another super cycle, which would blow the last 4 decades numbers, kind of the last 3 preceding this decade out of the water. But if we're going to, fall in line with where we have the last 3 decades, then we've experienced the majority of our home price growth. So we might have incremental 2s and 3s and 4s over the next 5 years, but we're not likely to experience this huge zap up on home price growth. 45.3% in the US. You could argue New York, being 10% the US, has room to grow. And we're seeing that recently now, aren't we? We're seeing inventory tighten up in Manhattan. We're seeing multiple offers where places like, a Southwest Florida or, Dallas are starting to now pull back a little bit. Okay. All this data obviously is available in your local market. If you're in Providence, Rhode Island, 55.4%, something to market to. If you look at New Orleans, 3% only since that time. Okay. Is that an investment opportunity, or is that a run for the hills of Tennessee opportunity? Is 3% going to turn into negative 13 over the next 5? They missed the boat, or is there an investment opportunity there? Obviously that's something that a local New Orleans agent would be able to speak to. But all of these numbers mean something for your local market. All of that data is uploaded, obviously, for you inside of bamxschool.com/BAMX. Okay. Let's move over now. Actually, Bobby, could you play that? This is just another comparison of kind of a way to think about these the affordability issues. Play that Instagram clip if you can. I'm not going to be able to play it here from my side. But here, I don't know if you've seen this clip online. That's not the clip.
Yep.
Okay, so no, not mine, but it's in the hot sheet show notes.
Oh, okay.
It's in our show notes in our yeah.
2 minutes. Roll it.
All right, good. So Bobby's going to bring this up. Here's a way to think about all of the affordable housing is a huge issue. But some of the things that people are spending their money on, they're often demonized for buying this item instead of saving for a house. Listen to this. This is an interesting way to frame this. With where prices have gone and where the affordability issues have become top of discussion. And make sure you play it from the beginning,
television
Bobby.
would
I
run
can't
you
hear it, so I don't
$1,000
think
bucks.
anybody
So
else
if you
can.
bought
But
3 TVs, that would be $3,000.
Here, hold on. 1 second.
About buying luxuries is
Very
because back in the
smith.
80s,
No.
luxuries were expensive, but life
All
was
right.
cheap. Now
Anyway,
it's been
we'll move
inverted.
on.
Our life is
If-
expensive, but our luxuries
If you,
are cheap. So I think
what
this
he's saying here, I'll summarize
For
it.
example, in 1980,
1980s, if you wanted to get one of the first ever 1980s, 1990s, first ever flat screen TV, just drop that off the screen, Bobby. I don't want to look at his face anymore since we can't hear him. You know, it was going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay. The luxury items back then, TVs, cell phones, were ultra expensive, reserved for only a few. Okay. Those luxury items that people, get accosted at times for buying and not saving for other things, flat screens. You can go into Costco and get one for probably 300, 400 bucks or something. Cell phones, not everybody has to have an iPhone. Cell phones are a dime a dozen. There's more computing power than when we went to the moon. You always hear that analogy, right? So all of these luxury items that we buy today are very cheap, right? Technology has accelerated since then. The true luxuries now have become like, can you afford a house? People are like, why are you buying all this stuff? You're just like spending this. A lot of times people are overspending on these things, buying more and more and more of it, because unfortunately they feel like they're never going to be able to save up enough. And certain homes, certain markets have been only reserved, obviously, for a few, where in the 1980s, it was a little bit more, obtainable. Now, the percentage, though, it's interesting when he goes through this, and if you find that clip, it's FM Smith 319. The percentage, though, on if you were actually buying those luxury items back then with a house, and to buy all these items today with the typical house payment, we're coming out right around the same thing. So just an interesting way to look at it. Unfortunately, that clip didn't work. All right, let's move over to realtor.com real quick. That was obviously on, they could hear it. I just couldn't hear it. But anyways, we're moving on, Bobby. We're moving on. Sorry about that. We're moving on to this realtor.com. The last report was the Zillow.com. It's all broken out for you inside of BAMX. By the way, if you guys want to get the original reports when you are inside of, BAMX, again, just go into the hot sheet classroom, click on today. And if you want all the original resources and download those reports, those are all going to be right there, along with all of the charts. And we'll stay right in here and work through some of the realtor.com data that was just released. So realtor.com released this here within the last couple of days. Price reduced share. We looked at Altos research. It was slightly up versus the last 2 years. We were up above the normal third. It was 33.7%. I know that's just above a third, but we came in each of the last 2 years at 31. What's interesting about this time of year is typically in normal markets. This red line is 2019. You see home price reductions moving down. Okay. 2023, they moved down. And I know that was far from, obviously a normal year. Look what happened in 2022. They moved down and then popped up by April. What was April? That was interest rate acceleration time. So the reductions followed the rates moving up. But let's pick some more normal markets. 2017, 2018, 18, you had rising interest rates in comparison to the previous years. So you had them starting flat anyways, but before moving up later into the spring market. 2019 would be the best comparison of what I would consider a normal market on this chart. 2019 moved down all the way into April on price reduction, competitive spring market, normal feel to the spring that you would expect. What Realtor.com on their portal is experiencing year over year in February of 2025 is a move up. And it's a pretty sharp line in comparison to these other years. It's almost as sharp as when the interest rates, March, April, April shot up in 22. It's almost as sharp as that. It's as sharp as late season 2019, May, June. Think when you get to May and June, sellers like, I've missed the spring market, time to reduce. So a 2.2% year over year increase, 16.8% on the portal. On a price reduce number from Realtor.com. Here's median listing price per Realtor.com. Median listing price has decreased 0.8% since last February. Okay, so Realtor.com saying since last February, we've actually seen homes going out at 0.8% lower. This is the listing, not closing. Okay, so when we're having conversation, this might be a chart to download from BAMX when you go into a listing appointment. Somebody who's like, well, I think I should just list it a little bit higher and see, what happens. My button's not working here, Bobby. I think I should list it a little bit higher and see what happens. Most people are testing the market higher. Okay, well, this chart would show us that that's actually not true. The consensus is that these homes are coming out on Realtor.com anyways, lower than what they have. They're actually asking a lower price. So maybe more people are trying to drive competition to their home, and we should take a look at that strategy if we want to be in line from a competitive standpoint. So median listing prices down 0.8%. Active listing count is up 27.5% year over year in February. Look at most spring markets. This is a flat move on the chart, sideways move, or it's actually moving down in some years. Look at 2020, January, February, which was going to be a very competitive market before March kind of changed everything. That was already moving down on active listing count. Let's go to 2019. 2019 was moving flat before moving up when more of the sellers come on late February, March, April. Okay, we've been moving up throughout the year. This is different from any year from 2017 through 2024. This spike up 27.5% higher on active listing inventory. Inventory moving up. Total listing count also up 18.2% on Realtor.com's portal. Pending listing count. They've got 1.2% gain year over year. Now, that's in February 2025. We've seen NAR's data showing us lagging. We've shown Altos showing us lagging. For Realtor.com, what they're seeing on their portal, that's an up 1.2%. So just a different way to look at it. But again, within the margin of error, as politicians like to say, we're not seeing a real, or pollsters like to say, we're not seeing a real movement up 1%. You could consider that flat on pendings. Days on market on the Realtor.com app, plus 5 days year over year, 66 days on market. And that's right in the middle. It's more days than 23 and 24 and 22 and 21. But it is still less days than what we saw 17, 18, and 19 days on market when you're looking just at the realtor.com app. All right. You can grab all that content for yourself right inside of Realtor, or right inside of BAMX, school.com/BAMX, to grab your membership there. What Realtor.com, here's the punchline on some of this stuff. What they're saying is these price reductions might be giving some buyers more room to negotiate this spring. That's going to be market dependent. Okay. Buyers in the Northeast aren't seeing a lot of price reductions or feeling that price reductions are giving them more room to negotiate because inventory is so tight. That might be different though in Dallas. That's going to be different, certainly in Southwest Florida. Now, we looked at some of the numbers there on Zillow when it relates to some of these metros. Let's just take a quick look here, particularly on median listing price, because the listing price, not the closing price, is interesting to me based on just how sellers are being, educated by their agent or thinking about a competitive standpoint coming in. Atlanta's down 2.7% on listing price. Austin down 7.9%. Hey, if I want to be realistic about selling, I got to come in lower than what's happening. While Cleveland's on the flip, they're up 14% on median listing price. Listing price is nothing more than marketing. It's my initial offer to the market. It's not where I'm going to end up. There's strategy in how I pick it. Do I go below, at, or above market? Okay. There's strategy on how I'm going to position my property to the market. Denver's down 6.1%. Kansas City's down 9.9%. Milwaukee's up 6.4%. Phoenix is down 4.9%. Orlando's down 3.7%. OKC's down 2.6%. OKC's down 2.6%, and they have a median price of $314,000. Like, you take OKC 314 and put it in another market, man, those asking prices are gonna shoot through the roof. They're not gonna be down negative 2.6, but we know OKC, we know that there's new construction that you can get under the national median price. So builders are there. Those asking prices are moving down based on the inventory. A lot of this has to do with inventory. Richmond, Virginia, down 4.2% on the asking price. San Francisco's down 9%. San Diego, which has been hot the last couple of years in particular, down 4.7%. San Jose down 4.6%. Tampa's down 4%, and Tampa's, according to Case Shiller, the only one major metro area of the top 20 that is down in actual sales price year over year. Okay. Paying attention to these asking prices for these metros is going to give your seller some insight on, what's viable, what makes sense to go out to market at, and how I should be thinking about price. All right. Today is, it's Trump Tariff Tuesday today. Okay. So you probably are seeing this in the headlines. Trump has confirmed a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. It's starting today. So we haven't seen any breaking news. There was some hope yesterday. I was reading, I think it was maybe on CNBC last night as I was wrapping up. There was some hope that there'd be a last minute deal. But these tariffs have been, have started here. So, Mexico and, which was on a delay. Mexico says it's going to retaliate. Canada says they're going to retaliate. China's going to say that they're saying that they're going to retaliate. So these are the things that could happen. A couple things to keep in mind on tariffs. The tariffs start today. They impact the economy in a year, 2 years. So there's a podcaster, Jason Calcanis, on all in. He has a 72-hour rule with the Trump administration. Anything they say, he gives it 72 hours and see, and then basically tests it 72 hours later. Are they still saying the same thing, or have they actually followed through with that? Okay. So if these stick and they're not a negotiating tactic, then we're not going to really see anything economically for a year or two. Okay. So Wall Street Journal reporting the 25% goods took effect first thing this morning. Canada has responded with a plan. They're going to do 25% back on nearly 100 billion US imports. Mexico is now saying the same thing. There was an extra 10% that happened on Chinese goods. Economists, and you got to watch it with the economists on this thing here on the tariff side, If you get a left-leaning economist, they're going to say tariffs are the worst thing ever. If you get a right-leaning economist, they're going to say tariffs are the best thing ever. It's probably somewhere in the middle of the two. Okay. But economists say American importers and businesses will likely pass along the cost of tariffs to consumers, meaning individuals are likely to see higher prices at grocery stores and car dealerships. Warren Buffett said the same thing. He said tariffs are a tax on the American consumer. So a lot of this is going, going to be remain to be seen on how it plays out. What we want to pay attention to is what's this going to mean? Obviously, the overall economy, but what does this mean for in the immediate near term housing market? Okay, so a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, all the tariff conversations seemed like bad news for the immediate economy and what's going on. But I don't know. They're now actually officially in effect. They're official today. And what do I see on the 10-year? Well, I see the lowest number I've seen in the last 90 days. Okay, so when there was high fear of tariffs here, January, first couple weeks of January, particularly January, look at January 20th is right in this region here, the highest point we've seen on the 10-year treasury. Oh my God, there's going to be tariffs. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. And now they're actually in effect. Today's the day they're in place. And we have the lowest 10-year treasury read that we've seen in the last 90 days. So investors taking a non-political, non-emotional approach to how they're measuring the long-term effects, because the 10-year treasury is a long-term bet. This is a long-term rate for us that drives the other long-term rate that we care about, the 30-year fixed. They're saying we don't see what they're saying here in the 10-year, what this 10-year says today, being lower than it was beginning of January, is today we feel like long-term inflation is not going to be an issue where we had concerns about it in January. Maybe investors, I don't know, I'm not an expert on how they're thinking, but maybe investors are saying, you know what, even though they're in play today, we've seen enough over the first 4+ weeks of the Trump administration, whatever it's been, to believe that this is all negotiating. This is all tactics. This is all sequencing. I enact this, I get that on the other end, I make a deal. Okay, maybe whatever the case may be, I like the 10-year moving down, because what have we seen in the last week and a half is we've seen it impact the 30-year fixed in a really meaningful way at a meaningful time. The early innings, the early holes of the spring market. 6.74 exact reading is Friday, and now we've marked the lowest 10-year yield in the last 3 months. I expect, no crystal ball, expect 30-year fixed to move even lower today. Great news for home shoppers and buyers for this spring market. Interestingly enough, CME Group, they were 95% yesterday on no cut happening at the next meeting in 15 days. They were 97.5 at the end of last week. They're down to 89%. All of a sudden, there's a little bit, this is a strong indication that there'll be no cut, but all of a sudden there's a little bit movement down even on that, which CME Group is basically saying, hey, the Fed is feeling more comfortable on inflation. Investors are showing you that long term, they feel very comfortable on if they thought inflation was going to get on a runaway train over the next decade in the US, they wouldn't be making the bets that they're making right now. Now, I know there's uncertainty in equities, and you might be seeing some people just kind of flock to safety on the 10-year as well. That's the other side of this. But ultimately, today, tariffs are enacted, and we're seeing the lowest 10-year in 90 days. For me, if that's the case, and this is negotiating, I think we're in a good place. Rates are being pushed down. We'll see what happens. We'll obviously continue to track that. All right. Hope this was helpful here today. If you're new to the hot sheet, if you're just jumping in, Send this to a friend, text it to a friend, share it to a friend. Hot Sheet goes every Monday through Thursday when the markets are open. We're live at 9:30 on the East, 6:30 on the West. The best way to support what we're doing here on the BAM YouTube channel is to hit the subscribe button down below. It's absolutely free. Hit subscribe down below. We're going to have a podcast later on today on some of the industry news, the real estate industry news, the real world, that'll be up today, somewhere in this afternoon. I'm going to jump into recording that for you guys right now. So the best way to support this and get access to all of that content first is hit the subscribe button down below, set the notification bell, share this with a friend if you think it could be useful to them. All right. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you guys all later on in the real world or tomorrow on the next Hot Sheet. Until then, toodaloo.